not facing any issue, which means yes, maximum people are ready to start the class. So yes, 15 students. Let me add a message in the group again. Fourth batch, right? Yes. Okay. 18 students. Yes, now the students number is increasing. That's good. Okay, so how many of you are aware what we are going to discuss in today's class? Yes, how many of you are aware what we are going to discuss in today's class? Just tell me. Yes. Answer in the chat box. Okay, yes, Naveen, you are correct. We are going to discuss about the pollination. Okay, in the previous class, we have studied how the male gamete is going to be formed. Yes, exactly. How the male gametophyte is going to be formed and how the female gamete is going to be formed, right? Now, how the male gamete and female gamete, they combine together. I mean, before the fertilization, they should come near each other, right? So how that process is going to take place, that we will study under the pollination, right? So yes, here's a question regarding the previous classes. So a typical angiosperm anther is a dithecous, which means that it is. Dithecous means what do you mean by dithecous? Angiosperms, okay. Sorry, in the anther of angiosperm. One lobe and the lobe has two theca. Two lobes and each lobe has two theca. Two lobed and each lobe has a one theca, and four lobe and each lobe has two theca. What is the answer? Yes, Rukmini, you are correct. Don't choose the multiple options, okay? Just choose the appropriate answer. No, Sahana. Try the other answer. Yes, Saujanya, you are correct. Deepanu. Oh, Naveen, very good. The advanced answer. Super. Yes, Sahana, correct. Bhagyashri, no. Sushri, Sarita, Saho, yes, correct. Sushri, is it correct? Am I pronouncing correctly? Srishai, yes. Correct, Srishai, hi. Okay, the answers are like this. And I told you not to choose a multiple options and you are trying. If we choose, what is going to happen, right? It's okay. I'll change that. Today I'll remember and I'll change the settings. So yes, 14% of the people have chosen option A, 71% of the people have chosen option B, 14% of the people have chosen option C, and 7% of the people have chosen option D. And I'm stop sharing the results. See, if you are able to remember the structure of the anther, which is having something like this, not exactly, okay, I'm a bit bad at drawing. See, this is what the structure, right? And this is the one lobe and this is the second lobe. So you cannot choose the single lobe. Normally, we are considering the most common one. Most commonly, all the anthers in the angiosperms do contain two lobes. So you cannot choose a one lobe or you cannot choose four lobe. Right. So the remaining one is two lobe and each lobe contains how many theca? That is what, right? So each lobe contains, this is a one and this is another one. Two theca. Each lobe contains sorry, 2 teacup. So the correct option is 2 lobe, and each lobe has 2 teacup. Okay. So this is what the question, first question. You always need to read the question and also the options very carefully. And see, if you are facing any difficulties to choose the answer, at that time what you need to do is, you need to eliminate the answers. If you eliminate the answers, then you will get the correct option. So yes, we are not good at choosing the correct answer, because everyone are not good at choosing correct answers and few are very good at choosing the correct answer. So the people who are good at choosing the correct answer, no problem with them. But yes, people like me, we are a bit bad at choosing the correct answer, or we just get some confusions. No? At that time, what we need to do, we need to eliminate the options. By eliminating the options, then we will get the correct option. So, and after getting a correct option, just to cross check with that, read the question carefully, and the answer which you are feeling that as the correct answer, just read with that. And if you feel that is a correct, then only answer. Or if you are sure, then you answer. Okay? In the NEET I'm saying, but here you can answer whether it is a right or wrong. First try to answer, and then you will come to get all the points day by day, no issue for that. Okay. See, the pistol of power is, yesterday I have given you the options. Sorry, I have shown you the images, right? This is one of those images. So monocarpellary, the pistol of power is monocarpellary or multicarpellary apocarpus, multicarpellary syncarpus, absent. Yesterday I have shown you 3 images. What are all those? Hibiscus, papaver, michaelia. Right? If you remember the options, yes, Rukmini, Bhagyashree, correct. If you remember the images, then you will get, you will choose the correct option. Yes, Shanta, Raghavi, correct. Yes, Sushri is correct. Sahana, yes. And few more answers I need. Swati, yes. Pooja, yes. Only 48% of voting I can see in the poll. What about others? Yes. I'm ending the poll, and the results are like this. See, nobody have chosen option A, because at least you know monocarpellary. Yesterday I have shown you for the monocarpellary is a hibiscus. Papaver is for the other. So 13% of the people have chosen option B, 80% of the people have chosen option C, and 7% of the people have chosen option D. Pepper, in the pepper flower, does the pistil is absent? No, in pepper flower contains the pistil, and that is not the monocarpellary, that is a multicarpellary. And look at the image. In that you can see the pink colored one, they come and fuse like this. If the pistils are fused together, that is called as what? Multicarpellary. The pistils are fused together, many pistils fused together in a single flower, that is what? That is called what? Multicarpellary, apocarpus or syncarpus. Very good. Rukmini, Vaishnavi. So that is just Sahana, that is a syncarpus, multicarpellary syncarpus. Okay. So yes, this is about yesterday's class, and what we are going to study in today's class, that is what? The pollination. So yes, some of the pre-fertilization events. So by the yesterday's class, we have studied the pre-fertilization structures and some events, right? In today's class, we will study one of the main pre-fertilization event, that is what? The pollination. So what is going to happen in the pollination? In your lower classes, you have studied many things about the pollination. I'm not going beyond that. We'll just discussing the same thing again. Okay, it is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a pistil. Right? If there is a flower, the flower contains the pollen anther, and the anther is going to release the pollen grain. Right? So that pollen grain has to reach the stigma. Stigma is the platform, right? Stigma is the platform for the delivery, landing of the anther. So the landing of that anther, or the transferring of that anther from one, from the, transferring of that pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the another flower, or the same flower, that is what called the pollination. Just the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a pistil is called pollination. Okay, so what kind of pollinations we can see? If you are able to observe the image showing you three ways of pollination: A, B, C. Are you guys understanding anything about that? Take a few seconds or take a few minutes and try to understand that. If you really understand, you can say yes, that's it. I am not going to ask you explanation and all. I'll explain you, but let us see how much you can understand by seeing that image. How many people understood? If you understood, say yes, otherwise no. Oh, very good. Naveen, Sahana, Suma, Biswajit, Rukmini, Ananya. Everyone needs to say whether yes or no. If you don't say no, I'll just skip, because everybody understood, no? Yes, Ragavi, Shanta, Prajwal. Okay. Wait, Suma. See. Okay, then I will explain you. This is just very simple. Okay, so yes, the pollination is of three types. One is autogamy, geitonogamy, and xenogamy. Let us study about the autogamy. Auto is a self, gamy is a marriage. Okay, just remember that, then you will easily understand that. Self marriage means what? So the pollen grain is going to transfer to the stigma within the same flower. Okay, if the flower which contains both the sex organs, if the flower contains anther and pistil, okay, stamen and pistil, this one flower contains both the sex organs. Okay, so the male sex organ is going to release the anther, it is going to release the pollen grain. That pollen grain is go and sits on the stigma of the pistil of a same plant, of a same flower. That is what called the autogamy, where the fertilization is going to take place between the male and female gamete of the same flower, right? So yes, transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower is called as autogamy. So this autogamy comes under the self-pollination. So self-pollination means, yes, the pollination is taking place within the same flower. That is why this is considered as the self-pollination. And one more thing here, in the self-pollination or in the autogamy, there are no extra genes will come, right? So no genetic variation will take place, because the same flower is producing the male gamete, the same flower is producing the female gamete, and they both are transferring. Male gamete is going to transfer towards the female gamete, and then they are going to fertilize. So same flower is all the process is done. All the process is done inside the same flower, right? Then there is no genetic variation in the autogamy. So next comes the geitonogamy. So what is going to happen in the geitonogamy is that, yes, The pollination is going to take place between two flowers, not the same flower, between two flowers. One is a male flower which uh, transfers the pollen grain towards the stigma of the different flower, but the both flowers will be stay in a single plant. Okay, the single plant produces a male plant, no, sorry, male flower and female flower. The male flower is going to send the pollen grain towards the female flower, and in the female flower the fertilization is going to take place, but both the flowers belongs to the same plant. That is what called as a geitonogamy. Yes, normally the geitonogamy is considered as a cross pollination because the pollination is taking place between the two different flowers, but genetically the geitonogamy comes under, or genetically the geitonogamy is exactly same as a autogamy because the two flowers produces a two gametes. One is male gamete and another one is a female gamete, and those two gametes are produced by the same plant itself. So yes, normally geitonogamy comes under the cross pollination, but when you see genetically, that is similar to the autogamy because here in the geitonogamy also you cannot see any variations, genetic variations. Okay, and the third one is that xenogamy. Xenogamy means the one plant is going to produce the pollen grain, and that pollen grain is going to transfer to the stigma of the flower of a other plant. Okay, the plant, one plant, there are two plants, one plant is going to produce a pollen grain, that pollen grain is going to transfer to the other plant, or transfer to the other flower, and that flower belongs to the other plant, right? And the both plants belongs to same species only, but they're different plants, two different plants. Okay, that is what called xenogamy. Here you can observe the male gamete is going to produce by the one plant, and the female gamete is going to produce by the different plant. Here the genetic there are chances of genetic variation or genetic recombination, right? Is that clear? Autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy. Click on yes if it is clear. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 students out of 33. Okay, 11 students out of 33. What about others? Akshita, Ananya, Anusha. Yes, Ananya. Who is that? Galaxy 2, Galaxy J2. Shivanand, Sahana, Vaishnavi. Okay, understood. Super. So let me just read some points then. Yes, here is a note, but I don't want you to explain by reading the notes. That's why I have explained normally. No, Pratmesh. That we need to do manually. Stigma is going to accept the pollen grain of the same species only. Okay. Yes, autogamy. Just I'll read. Have a look. It is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Yes, easy. In flower with the exposed anther and stigma, complete autogamy is rare. See here. If you take yeah, if you take a flower which is highly exposes its male and female reproductive system. Okay, autogamy, self pollination means obviously the flower should contain both the male and female sexual reproductive organs, right? If those reproductive organs are exposed very much, exposed to the environment very much, then autogamy is very rare because if they are exposed to the air, there are many pollen. I mean, there are many pollen grains. Oh, yes, there are many pollen grains, which are there possibility of having many pollen grains in the air, and those pollen grains may come and sit on the stigma. So that leads to the cross pollination, right? So that is why if the flowers which are open, kept open, those flowers are very rare to have the self pollination or autogamy. Okay, so autogamy in such flowers requires synchrony in a pollen release and stigma receptivity. See, listen, what does it mean? Usually the flowers which undergo for the self pollination, they are closed flowers, because inside the flower only the male and female gametes are sorry, male and female reproductive organs, they mature and they produce a male and female gametes respectively, and they fuse. This all takes place within the closed flower only. But there are some flowers which open. If they open, there are highly reduced chances for the self pollination, right? So at that time, what the flower will do to continue the self pollination, what does the flower do? If the flower is open, then the pollen is going to release, and the stigma get its receptivity. Receptivity means the capacity of accepting the stigma. Capacity of accepting the stigma, sorry, accepting the pollen grain and releasing of pollen grain. The both the process are going to take place at the same time. That is what synchrony in a pollen release and stigma receptivity. Stigma receptivity means the capacity to accept the pollen grain. So the both pollen release and stigma receptivity will take place at the same time. Okay, so that if the both things are happening at the same time, synchrony means at the same time, or a coincidence, like not the coincidence exactly, but the both are occurring at the same time. Okay, synchrony, for example, you can say if you and your friend are there, you always go to the school at the not the simultaneously. If you and your friend are there, you always go to the school at the same time, and you always go to the mess at the same time, and you always what I can say, yes, go to the study hours at the same time, because you and your friend have synchrony there. Yes, adjustment I can say, or whatever the things you do at the same time, right? That is what synchrony I can say. Right, and this is a one method where synchrony in a pollen release and stigma receptivity, and also the anther and stigma, they both should be in a, or they both should be close enough or close to each other. That is what is going to happen in the self pollination. If it should takes place in the open flowers. Usually in the self pollination the flowers are closed, but in a rare conditions, in very rare conditions, the flowers keeps opening. So at that time, what is going to happen? There is a synchrony between a pollen release and stigma receptivity, and also the anther and stigma should be close to each other. Okay, understood? See, there are two types of flowers there. Based on the opening of the flower, and the flower is going to encourage either a cross pollination or the self pollination. Based on that, we have two types. One is that, yes, chasmogamous flowers. See, you can observe very beautifully colored flowers, right? And whether the flowers are opened or closed, tell me whether the flowers are open or closed. Look at the image. Yes, Rukmini. Yes, Biswajit, Bhagyashri, correct. Ananya, Shanta. See, always the flowers are open and brightly colored. Okay, whatever may be the flower, what kind of maybe flower it is, but if any flower which is open, brightly colored, and that encourages the cross pollination, that kind of flower is called as chasmogamous flower. Okay, chasmogamous flower which is open, brightly colored, and expose their sex organs, and also the cross pollination, it always encourages the cross pollination. That is what called the chasmogamous flower. whatever may be the flower in your garden, you can go and observe, right? There you can get more chasmogamous flower, and also you can get another type of flower called clistogamous flowers, right? Clistogamous flowers which always encourages the self pollination, which always encourage self pollination, and the flowers are always closed, and they're not brightly colored, or they do not attract any pollinators. Okay, see here, they are brightly colored and these are not brightly colored. Okay, not brightly colored because they do not want to uh, be bright, or they do not want to have the elements to attract the pollinators, because they always encourage the self pollination. That is why flowers are always closed and they are not brightly colored at all, and yes, they always encourage the self pollination, right? Here you can have the example, this kind of plant you might have seen in your ponds, right? That is Subilaria aquaticus or Subilaria aquatica. Okay, this plant is Subilaria aquatica, right? So usually, yes, autogamy is going to take place in the clistogamous flowers. Okay, autogamy or self-pollination is going to take place in the clistogamous flowers because they always encourage the self-pollination. Right. And what about the chasmogamous flowers? Chasmogamous flowers always encourages the cross pollination, which means they require the pollinating agents. I'll tell you about the chasmogamous flowers in later, or cross pollination, about the cross pollination. But do you guys understand what is the self pollination? How the self pollination is going to take place? What are the two kinds of flowers? Chasmogamous flowers and clistogamous flowers. Understood? Now, let us study about the gytinogamy. Okay, you know already gytinogamy means transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Right? It is a transfer of yeah. It is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Okay, in the same plant only, the pollen grain is going to transfer from one flower to the another flower. That is what called gytinogamy. And I told you already, it is a functionally cross pollination. Functionally cross pollination involving a pollinating agents. Yes, obviously cross pollination means pollinating agent should be there. Unless until there is no pollination, pollinating agent, the pollen grain will not transfer. Okay, but it is genetically similar to autogamy, right? You know already it is genetically similar to autogamy, since the pollen grains come from the same plant. Okay, yes, you know already I told you the pollen grains are coming from the same plant but the different flower. That's it. That is why it is functionally cross pollination, but genetically it is similar to the autogamy. Okay, now is a xenogamy. Yes, it is a transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of a different plant, and it brings a genetically different pollen grains to the stigma because the pollen grains are arising from the different plant. That is why it always brings the genetically different pollen grains to the stigma of that plant. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Click on yes if it is clear. Yes, 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 yes. Click on yes. Does anyone feeling, I mean, does anyone facing any issue to click on yes or no? Because yes, few people are saying yes in the chat box, and but you are not clicking on yes. I mean, I'm just asking whether do you guys facing any issue? Ah, okay. It's okay, no problem. I just asked if there is an issue, we can sort it out, no? Okay. So understand, right? So now tell me, what are the importance or what are the advantages of self-pollination? Yes, I want, before going to this, I'll just ask you what are the advantages of self-pollination. I'm not going to write because this is very easy. So you need to tell me what are the advantages of self-pollination. I want answers from you. Advantage is a no genetic variation. So how does it becomes an advantage? Conservation of self genetic material or characters. Yes, Navin, correct. More chance of fertilization. Yes. Loss of pollen is minimum. Yes, this Vijit correct. And no need of attract pollen grain. No need to attract a pollen grain. No, no. No need to attract a pollinating agent. Yes, Vaishnavi. Any more answers? So yes, as you guys said, one advantage is that we can conserve the genetic materials or yes, Hannah, we can conserve the genetical characters and there is no wastage of pollen grains and uh, they should not depend on the pollinating agents, right? They should not depend on the pollinating agents and they should not want to get the brightly colored or nectar. They should not have such things, right? And less wastage of pollen grains. So all the things are the advantages. So what are the disadvantages then? What are the disadvantages of the self pollination? Yes, you cannot see the variation there. If you want to see the new, uh, what I can say, yes, if you want to see the new characters, you cannot see. That is what called variation. If there is no variation, yes, as Deepa you were saying, right? Plants cannot tolerate to the high temperature. Not only to the high temperature, they cannot withstand to the change in the environment. If there is no variation, the same character. See, 100 years back, or just imagine the parents of yours or grandparents of yours. See, they are having some characters, but by day, just see the general world. Right, your parents, not your parents, your grandparents do not know how to use the smartphones, right? But at the present generation, you should know, compulsorily you should know how to use the smartphone. That is mandatory. It's becoming a mandatory for everyone, right? So this is what the variation has taken place from the previous generation to your generation. And there are many things which your parents don't know, you know. And there are many things which your grandparents don't know and your parents know, that because they are evolving, or humans are evolving according to the generation. That is because, I can't say that is because of variation, but in the same way, if the plants, just imagine the plants 100 years ago, how the environment is. So to that environment, that genetical makeup, that all the things are very much enough to survive or sustain, right? But after 100 years, or by the process, the environment is changing a lot. To adapt that, I mean, to adapt the conditions of the environment, the plant has to change itself. If there is no variation, there is no adaptability, right? If there is no adaptability, the plants will die, or there are chances of uh, losing the generation also, right? Embryo may die in middle, this is because they can't tolerate. Yes, yes, yes. Does this yes, it can happen. And there are many reasons. Okay, if the embryo is dying means because it is not getting proper nutrition, or it is not able to, the complete plant is not able to adapt to the environment. There are many reasons. While discussing about the fertilization and post fertilization event, we'll discuss about this. Okay, yes, this is all about self pollination. And if we come to the cross pollination, what are the advantages quickly? If we come to cross pollination, what are the advantages? Use the chat box. Tolerance to the environment, variation is there, variation increases the survival. Yes, survival of fittest. Okay, genetic variation is going to take place, and they can adapt to the environment, and they can survive at any kind of the temperatures or any kind of the environments, right? And what are the disadvantages then of making nature beauty? Yes, Navi. Disadvantage. Yes, wastage of pollen grains. Loading own character. So what does that mean? Okay, losing. Okay, depend on pollinators. Yes, they should always depend on the pollinators. Yes, Trisha, you raised your hand. So they should always depend on the pollinator, because if there is no pollinator, there are highly reduced chances. And you might have seen in most of the places that the people used to kill the honeybees only because of the hive. They can take the hive in other ways also, right? So why do they kill the honeybees? Especially the people who are living near the forest. That leads to the decrease in the number of honeybees. If the honeybee number is decreased, then there are many things we need to face. Okay, there are many consequences we need to face. That's why we should, now there is no problem, but now only we should be aware, and we should tell the people not to kill the honeybees, just to take the honey, or they can collect the hive or honey, anything, but they cannot kill the honeybees, right? If the honeybee number goes less means, that's very horrible to imagine. And not only honeybees, Vishal, but all the what I can say, all the different animals will do, but mostly honeybees. Yes, the sunbird or the other things also, other birds also help in the pollination. Snails, bats, all the things will help, but not to the extent. They are going to help in some extent, but honeybees to the large extent, they are going to help in the pollination. If we lost the honeybees, then we cannot see the cross pollination at all, and most of the plants depends on the cross pollination itself, right? Okay, now let us take a question. The only type of pollination that brings genetically different types of pollen grains to the stigma is chasmogamy, clistogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy. Yes, xenogamy under the cross pollination. Shanta, correct. I'm not asking a different type of flower, I'm asking a type of pollination. Yes, Naveen, Rukmini, correct. Yes, Swati. No, Shanta, check your answer. Sri Shail, you also check your answer. Last 5 minutes, sorry, 5 seconds. Yes, now great, 75%. uh, 40% to 50%, 50 to 60, 60 to now 75% of the people are voting on the poll. That's good. It's actually very good. See, the results are like this. 11% of the people have chosen option A, 4% of you have chosen option B, and 11% of you have chosen option C, and 78% of the people have chosen option D. That's good. That's great, actually. Okay. See, we know xenogamy, where it is going to, the pollination is going to take place between the two different plants, where the genetically different type of pollen grain is going to uh, pollinate with the stigma of the other plant. That is going to happen in the xenogamy. You cannot choose the chasmogamy and clistogamy, because chasmogamy and clistogamy are the flowers, type of flowers. Okay. And xenogamy, yes, in the xenogamy, the pollination is going to take place between the two flowers of the same plant. So then there is no genetically variation. Same type of pollen grain only you can see, right? So the correct option is xenogamy. Yes, now we are going to study about the pollinating agents or agents of pollination. Yes, I told you for the cross pollination, always the plant requires some vehicle or some transporter to transport or to transfer the pollen grain from one flower to the another flower, right? So what are all the transporters or what are all the vehicles? So the vehicles may be living or non-living vehicles. Okay. So if the vehicles are non-living, what are those non-living vehicles that helps in the pollination, or what are those abiotic agents? The non-living vehicles help in the pollination are called as a abiotic agents. The abiotic agents are wind and water. Okay. And there are some living vehicles also that carry the pollen grain from one flower to the another flower. Those are called biotic agents, called insects, birds, bats, primates, arboreal rodents, and reptiles. Okay. You can see there are many beautiful images where the animals or biotic agents or non-biotic agents which are helpful in the pollination. Yes, are you guys able to see that? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now let us study about some abiotic agents. First one is that wind. So, with the help of wind, how the pollination is going to take place, or if the pollination is going to take place by the wind, what does we call that? That we are going to call as the anemophily. That we are called as anemophily. If the pollination is taking place by the wind, that is called as anemophily. Okay. And the plants, whatever may be the plant which is going to pollinated by the wind, what are the characters the plant should have? First one is that pollen grain are light. The pollen grains should be very light in weight. Why? Can anyone say why the pollen grain should be very light in weight in the wind pollination or in the anemophily? Yes, Rukmini, correct? Anyone? Still? Still anyone want to answer? Oh, Biswajit. Wind current can carry Naveen to escape from a gravity. Oh, Srishti, Remat to carry easily by wind. Saujanya, it is easy to carry. Yes, you know already. So if the pollen grains are very light, then by the air or by the wind, the pollen grains can easily carry. That is the main reason why the pollen grains are light. And the pollen grains are non-sticky. Why? I'll ask. I mean, I'll get the answers from yourself, your side only, because you guys know very much. So why the pollen grains are non-sticky here? Yes, I'm waiting. Maybe stuck to other surface. Yes, not maybe. You are correct, Biswajit. If it is sticky, it can't flow away from the anther. Not exactly. You know, the anther will push that out. See, if the pollen grains are sticky, then we need strong wind to separate them. So we need no two sticky pollen grains. No. See, if the pollen grain released from the anther and that is traveling along with the, it is like a throwing a cricket ball, and if okay, it's like a throwing a cricket ball and a chewing gum ball. Oh, very good, Naveen. Super example actually, because they have a transfer. If sticky, it is not possible, ma'am. Yes, Vaishnavi. So yes, as Naveen said, it is like a throwing cricket ball, normal cricket ball and chewing gum ball. So if the ball is having a chewing gum, I mean, it is completely covered with a chewing gum and the normal ball. If we throw that, so if there are objects in middle, if there are, yes, obviously the wind is going to cross the many objects, right? If there are many objects in the middle and if we just throw the ball, that is going to stick to that object and that is not going to reach the exact point where we want to go. I mean, where we want to throw that, right? But if there is a normal ball, either that come back and that is going to move back again along with the air, right? So that is the main reason why it is not sticky. There are chances of sticking the pollen grain. If the pollen grains are sticky, there are chances of sticking the pollen grain to the walls or to the objects which are going to interrupt its path. Okay, right. And the third one is that stamens are well exposed. Stamens are well exposed. Why? Why? Because see, if there is a flower and inside the flower, the stamen is present inside the flower, right? Then the air or the wind current has to come inside the flower and it has to take out the pollen grains. That is very risky. There are, if the pollen grains are, I mean, sorry, if the stamens are not exposed, they're present inside the flower, then yes, Rukmini. If they're present inside the flower, then what is going to happen? Then no easy dispersal of the pollen grains takes place. If the stamens are very well exposed, yes, as Rukmini said, for the easy dispersal of the pollen grain, the stamens has to exposed. If the pollen grains are exposed very much, or if the stamens are exposed very much, the wind current which is coming on that way, it is going to carry the pollen grains. But if it is inside the flower, it cannot carry the pollen grains very easily, right? That is the main reason why the stamens are well exposed. Even the stigma is a large and feathery. Large and feathery stigma. Why? Because the large and feathery stigma, the large stigma is the main reason. So if the stigma is very large, it can easily in contact with the air and it is going to collect the pollen grains once the pollen grains are coming in the air. That is why the stigma is large. And why the stigma is a feathery? Because is the pollen grains are non-sticky, that will not come and stick to the stigma. That is why the feathery stigma, stigma is a feathery, then what is going to happen? That feathery stigma is going to trap the pollen grains, right? It is going to trap the pollen grains, and the suitable pollen grain or the exact pollen grain which has to pollinate or which has to fertilize, that is going to be accepted by the stigma. That is a later process. Okay, yes, this is all about the wind pollination. What are the characters of that plant? if that should undergo the wind pollination, these are all the characters. Pollen grains are light, pollen grains are non-sticky, stamens are well exposed, large and feathery stigma. The best example is that the corn, right? Here in the image you can see the corn tassels or the hairy-like structures in the corn. If you have observed the corn in a field or in the roadside, okay, they'll uh, make it a fry and they'll give you, no, at that time you can observe the complete corn with the sheath. There you can observe that that corn has the tassels or the hairy like structures, no, that feather or the tassel is the stigma, just to attract or just to trap the pollen grains. So from where the pollen grains are arised means, in the corn plant at the top you can see the flower like structure, or what I can say, there is a structure you can see in the second image, no, tassel, right? That is what the male flower. From that male flower, the pollen grains are going to be arised. Understood the wind pollination? Yes or no? Click. Click on yes or no. Seven. Only seven. Yes. From Saujanya. Okay. Yes. Okay. So can you guys tell me what are the advantages of the wind pollination? Yes, what are the advantages of wind pollination? So each and soon after completion of each and every pollinating agent, I'll ask you be prepared. Okay. No biotic agent is required. Yes, Naveen. Deepa Hegde. Lot of pollen grains can be carried together. Yes, but that is advantage. Okay. Any more? So it should not attract any, or the flower should not attract any pollinating agent, right? Here there are no use of having the attracting agents. Okay. And what are the disadvantages of wind pollination? See the disadvantages of wind pollination. Most of the pollen grains are wasted. Yes. So pollen grain number should be very high. And there are most of the numbers of, most of the pollen grains are going to be wasted. And one more thing, there is a very less chance of pollination. The direction of wind must be right as well as the speed. It may not possible every time. Yes, Rukmini. So the direction of wind also should be towards the female flower only, and that should be in a what I can say, that should be in a proper speed. If the speed is not maintained, that cannot travel along with the water, sorry, along with the air, then there are chances of falling down of pollen grains. Right, these are all the this is all about the wind pollination. Is that clear? Yes, I hope yes. Okay. Now, try to answer everyone. Okay, whether it is a correct or not, you can answer. Or if I am saying in between while you are typing, you can just send that. No issue. Okay, ma'am said why we need to send. No, don't think like that. You can send because you'll keep your mark, right? By answering it, always you'll keep your mark. There are no compromises to keeping your own mark. Okay, you should stood out. I'm telling each and everyone, you should stood out in the crowd all the time. We cannot go along with the crowd. Yes, if we go along with the crowd also, we have to stood out in that crowd. That's why you need to tell your opinion all the time. right? We are living in a country where we have most of the rights. In that, you have a right to say your opinion, or you have, so opinion means don't go for a big one. For now, for your age, yes, the opinion, you can say whatever you feel about the question, whatever you feel about the topic, you can say. Okay, I hope everyone will do. Yes, now we are studying about the biotic agents. Sorry, abiotic agent, that is the water. So that we will call as the hydrophily. That we will call as hydrophily. Yes, here the plants depend on the water to, what I can say, yes, for the pollination. Okay, see, approximately 30 genera are going to depend on the water for their pollination. So 30 genera are not the species, okay? 30 genera or genus, approximately 30 genera are going to depend on the water for their pollination. And ma'am, yes, I'll tell you, Shrishal. Let us complete all that, and we'll discuss. Okay? Good question, actually. Yes. See, there are two kinds of plants we can see. If you are having a habit of watching National Geography or Discovery Channel, there you can see the life in the ocean or life in the rivers. There you can see some of the plants which come and reach to the surface of the water. Some of the plants which come and reach to the surface of a water, and there are some of the plants which are inside the water only. So yes, here we have got two types of plants. So let us see in the two types of plants how the pollination is going to take place. First, let us see if the plants are reaching to the surface of the water, what is going to happen. First, stigma of a female flower. Okay, no need to mention, I guess. Stigma reaches the top or reaches the surface, I can write. Reaches the surface of water, right? And the pollen grains are released by the anther, released by the anther at the surface of water, at the surface of water. So then the pollen grains travel or transport along with water current, along with water current. Water current means the water flow. Okay, yes, then they reach the stigma, and finally they are going to, there you can see uh, the pollination. This is what is going to happen in the plants which are going to reach at the top, or which are going to reach the surface of the water. And there are some plants which are inside the water. Then what is going to happen to those plants? Okay, those plants, wait. Yes, those plants will release the pollen grain. I'm writing this with a different color so that you are going to understand. So release pollen grains inside the water only, because the plant is going to present inside the water itself. And stigma stigma also stays inside the water. And finally, the pollen grain reach the stigma along with the water current. This will also takes place, and here you need to remember about the pollen grain. The main characteristic of a pollen grain is that pollen grain is covered by mucilage layer. is covered by mucilage layer. Okay. Yes, understood. Why the pollen grain is going to covered by mucilage layer? Because you know that pollen grain is always present in the water in the hydrophilic plants, right? So those plants should, I mean, those pollen grains should not become a wet. If the pollen grains should become a wet, they cannot move properly or they cannot function properly. That is the main reason the pollen grains which are present in the water, they have the mucilage covering or they have the mucilage layer around it to avoid the wetting. Okay, understood how the hydrophily is going to take place. Yes, yes or no? Yes. Okay, and yes, the advantages and disadvantages are similarly the same. Okay, is that clear? And you can see the examples here. What are the examples for the hydrophily? Are means what happens if pollen grain is wet? Means what? Srishal, I didn't get you. Okay, pollen grain is wet. Okay, if the pollen grain is wet, what is going to happen? See, if the pollen grain wet means it cannot move properly along with the water. If it is wet, it will get more wet and it is going to shrink in. It will not reach the stigma. And if it wet, and yes, if it is wet also, it reaches the stigma means then the stigma releases some secretions. It is going to absorb all the water. If it is wet, then there are no chances to absorb the secretion by the stigma, then it cannot reproduce, I mean it cannot fertilize. That is why to avoid all the complications, the pollen grain do have the mucilage covering. Okay, see, examples are Vallisneria, you can see the first image, and Hydrilla, the second image, and Zoostera, which is the third image. Okay. Yes. Now let me take you a question. Let me take a question for you. The aquatic plant in which pollination is not carried out by water. Yes, this is aquatic plant, but water pollination is not taking place. Where? In Vallisneria, water lily, Zoostera, Hydrilla. This is very easy. I'm expecting 100% of answers. Yes, 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 yes. In the chat box, everyone are giving correct answers. Does hydrophily takes place by? Yes. Mm, 1 minute. 1 minute, Deepa. I'll come to a question. Yes. See, 11% of the people have chosen option A. Why do you choose option A? See, okay, 74% of the people have chosen option B. 19% of the people have chosen option C, and nobody chose option D. I guess most of you have did not observe the images carefully. See, observe here, Vallisneria, Hydrilla, Zoostera. So you can eliminate Vallisneria, Hydrilla, Zoostera. So yes, water lily, which is obviously present in the water, but the pollination will not take place by the water, but the pollination is going to take place by the wind. Anemophily is going to take place in the water lily plants. And what will happen to mucilage layer when after the stick to stigma? No, that is not going to. do anything after the pollination. Okay, the main purpose of that mucilage layer is to protect the pollen grain from the wetting. That's it. After that, it is going to degenerate. Yes, understood. So the water lily are going to, I mean, the plants are going to pollinate by the wind. Anemophily is going to take place. Okay. Yes. Now let us quickly have what I can say. Yes, the biotic agent or the pollination is taking place by the biotic agents. You can see the beautiful images or beautiful pictures of the many animals, right? So studying about the plants is always beautiful. Just we need to have some concentration on that. That's it. That is very easy and very beautiful also. See, Srisha, you asked me one question where in which the speed of pollination is good, or in which type of pollination the speed is more, right? So we cannot calculate the speed actually, but we can say majority. The majority of flowering plants do pollinate by the biotic agents. Whatever may be the biotic agents, we are just dividing abiotic and biotic. If we consider, biotic agents are going to play more number of, I mean, are going to play major role for the pollination. So what are all those biotic agents? Bees, butterflies, flies, beetles, wasps, ant, moth, birds like a sunbird and hummingbird, I told you, bats, primates like a lemur, and arboreal rodents, and reptiles like a gecko lizard and garden lizard. So these are all the animals, especially in a few cases humans also helpful in the pollination, because if we are just moving in a garden, or if we are just moving in the fields, then the chances we are going to rub to the flower, male flower, there our shirt or something, our dress touches with the pollen grain, and if we accidentally touch to the another female flower, there are yes, you need to tell me. You have studied in the 11th standard, Srishai. Try to tell the answer, I'll tell you. Okay. Let us complete this first. See, and if the pollination is taking place by the animals, that is what called zoophily. That is what called zoophily. Okay, and most of the pollination is taking place by the animals, and in the animals also mostly it is going to take place by the insects. That is what called entomophily. Okay. Yes, particularly bees is more common. I told you already, particularly the bees are more common, and often flowers of animal pollinated plants are specially adapted for a particular species of animals. See, there are some plants which always depends on the um, pollination takes place in a certain year, na ma'am. No. See, if there are some plant which depends on the one minute, Deepa, they are going to depends on what I can say is bees, and there are some flowers which only depends on the moth, some flowers which only depends on the birds. So at that time, what happened depends on the species of that animal. The flower modify itself. So if the pollination is taking place by the birds, so the bird has to keep that beak inside to collect the nectar. At that time, there are chances of getting the pollen grain. So what the flower will do, the flower will have the bell-shaped structure, so that the bird has to keep its mouth or a beak inside the flower, so that the pollination can take place. So depend like that depends on the species, the flowers are going to adapt themselves. Okay. And here Deepa is asking pollination is taking in a certain season. Yes, in a certain seasons, that is a flowering season. Okay, Deepa. In the flowering season, the pollination is going to take place. So, and what are the features of that plant. Okay, what are the features of that plant which is going to pollinate by the animals is like having the flower should be very large and colorful, right? Why? Because if the flower is large, then only the insects are able to see that, and that should be a colorful to attract the insects, and that should have fragrance. Fragrance is also to attract the pollinators and rich in the nectar. So to collect the nectar, the pollinators will visit that flower, obviously. By that, the pollination can take place. Nectar and pollen grains are the floral rewards for the pollination. And remember, if the flower is having all these things, how the pollination is taking place? Because by chance, if the male flower, which is having high fragrance and nectar, then the large and colorful means, then the insect or the animal is going to visit that, and it is going to absorb the nectar. To the feet of the animal, all the pollen grains are attached because it is reaching the male flower, right? After that, the same insect go and visit the female flower. At that time, it sits on the flower. The pollen grains are released on the stigma at that time, right? So this is how the pollination will take place. And if the flowers are small, then what happens? All the flowers together forms the inflorescence. So inflorescence make them very visible, right? And flowers pollinated by flies and beetles secrete foul odor to attract these animals. Okay, if the beetles and flies, they always attract to the foul odors. You might have observed in your home, if there is a very bad smell, very foul smell there, you can see most number of the flies and beetles. That is why some of the flowers which produces a bad smell, because of the flies and beetles. Because of that smell only, the flies and beetles come and visit the flower, and they, what I can say, yes, they pollinate the flower. Okay, the pollen grains are generally sticky, because if the insect come and sits on the pollen grain or come and sits on the anther, the pollen grain has to attach or stick to the legs of the insect. That is why the pollen grains are sticky in the biotic agents. And there is a relationship between the many plants. Okay, you can see the Amorphophilus. Amorphophilus is a plant which is going to produce the flower of about 6 feet height. So in that, most of the plants, most of the insects, not only by attracting, they feel safe to lay the eggs in that flower. For that purpose, also the flower, so the insects are going to visit the flower. And there's a relationship between a moth, one of the moth species, and the eka plant. So what is that relationship? Is that the moth species are going to lay the eggs in the eka plant flower. By laying the eggs, the moth species is going to pollinate the eka plant. Okay, this is how they both are interconnected. If there is no moth species, eka plant cannot pollinate. If there is no eka plant, the moth species cannot lay the eggs. Okay, this is how eka plant and moth species, they both interconnect each other. Understood this? How the pollinating agents, how the biotic agents are helpful in the pollination. And do you have any doubts? See, biotic agents, all these are biotic agents. So if what are the features of the plants which encourage the cross pollination by the animals, is that having large colorful flowers with a fragrance and rich in nectar. And if they are small flowers, they form an inflorescence which makes them visible. And the flowers pollinated by flies and beetles, they secrete the foul odor to attract these smells. Why eka plant is depends on only the moth species? Because only moth species is going to lay egg in the eka plant flower. No other species is going to lay eggs. That is why there is no option for the eka plant. It always should depend on the moth species only. and it does not have any other attractants to attract the other insects or the pollinating agents, right? So it will provide a safe place to the moth species itself. That is why it only depends on the moth species. And moth species also find the safe place only in acar plant flower. That is why the life cycles are incomplete without each other. Okay? Yes, is that clear? Click on yes if it is clear. Yes, 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 yes. Click on yes. Okay, you can unclick. Now let us see the other kinds of insects. See, there are some insects. What do they do? They come to collect the nectar. Along with that, they'll collect the pollen grains also, right? But they do. I mean, what they do? They'll just consume all the pollen grains or the nectar. What do they collect? Then they're not going to keep a honey or they're not going to keep a hive. They'll just collect the nectar and the pollen grain and they consume it without bringing for the pollination. So that kind of animals are called as pollen robbers or the pollen nectars. Okay, so this is about entomophily. And you can also see that the pollination is taking place by the birds called ornithophily. Okay, and if the pollination is taking place by the bats, Cryptenophily, and if it is taking place by the snails, Malacophily. These are the some names. Okay, just remember that. Yes, do you got any doubts here in this topic? Do you guys got any doubts or is everything clear? Tell me, any doubts or clear? So what are all the things we have studied in today's class? What is a pollination? What are the types of pollination? That is, yes, autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy, and what are the types of flowers? That is clistogamous and chasmogamous flowers, and the types of pollinating agents, abiotic and okay, Sana. Abiotic and biotic agents. Right, Eka plant. About the Eka plant, Sana, that is very easy. So Eka plant and one of the moth species. Moth species means there are some insects which are like butterflies. See, those are called moths. Okay. So one of the moth species and the Eka plant, they both are interconnected each other or they both are dependent on each other. How? The Eka plant should pollinate only by the moth species. No other species or no other insect is going to pollinate the acar plant. That is why the acar plant is always depends on the moth species, one of the moth species for the pollination. How the moth is going to depend on that? Because the moth have got only a one place to lay the egg is that acar plant flower. Right, it is going to lay the eggs in acar plant flower, and if there is no acar plant, the moth cannot lay the eggs and the life cycle of a moth will be incomplete. If there is no moth, the acar plant cannot get pollinate. The life cycle of the acar plant will be incomplete. Right, this is what the relationship between acar plant and the moth species. What does the pollen kit present? Oh, where does the pollen kit present in the flower? Okay. Yes, Bhagyashri, the pollen kit, do you know from where the pollen kit is going to be arised? The pollen kit is going to arise from the tapetum. That is one of the function of the tapetum, and the pollen kit which is present, if you just, let me tell you example so that you will easily understand. In the hibiscus flower, if you touch that, if you touch the flower, you will see all the yellow color powder on your hand, right? That is what the pollen kit. Okay. Yes. Any doubts before that? Let us take. Oh, see, the last topic. Sorry, I forgot to. I thought that this is on the next slides. Okay. See, the last one is that outbreeding devices. Outbreeding devices means there are some plants which are, so there are some plants which are going to have the bisexual flower. So even though they are having a bisexual flower, they do not encourage the self pollination. They always encourage the cross pollination. So to encourage the cross pollination, the plant is going to have some of the adaptations. Those are called as outbreeding devices. Okay. So hermaphrodite flowers means having two sex organs, can undergo self pollination, right? They can undergo, but continued self pollination results in an inbreeding depression. To avoid a self-pollination and to encourage the cross-pollination, there are some devices in a plant called outbreeding devices. So, how the outbreeding devices are helpful and what are all those outbreeding devices? Let us see. One is that incompatibility. Incompatibility. Incompatibility means, see, See, this is the stigma. On the stigma, the pollen grain has come and fallen. So, the stigma is going to identify the pollen grain, whether the pollen grain is of a same plant or of a different plant. So, incompatibility means if the pollen grain of the same plant come and sits on the stigma, this stigma is not going to allow, or this stigma is not going to accept that pollen grain by identifying the genes. So this you can also call it as genetic incompatibility. Genetic incompatibility, which means it is not going to allow the same pollen grain, or it is not going to allow the pollen grain of the same plant for the fertilization. That is what called genetic incompatibility. By identifying the genes, okay, it is having the same genes of mine. That is why the pistil is not going to allow the pollen grain for the fertilization. That is incompatibility or genetic incompatibility. And second one is that non-synchronization. Non-synchronization between pollen grain release and stigma receptivity. Yes, this is going to happen to create the variation. Yes, Deepa, correct. Stigma receptivity. Okay, if the flower is having a two sex organs, the male and female sex organs, so the pollen grain release and the stigma receptivity will take place at a different time. So if it want to have a self fertilization, then synchronization will take place. So it does not want to have a self fertilization, right? That is why the pollen release at the different time, the stigma gets its receptivity at the different time. And in some plants, to avoid the self pollination, the plant is going to produce unisexual flowers. Unisexual flowers. Okay, this is about outbreeding. So you can see here in the papaya, the male and female plants are different. Yes, here is a question. Uh, Genetic self-incompatibility tends to increase pollen dispersal, inbreeding, pollination, outcrossing. Yes, what is the correct answer? Genetic self-incompatibility. Just now I told you. Deepa, correct. No, Swati. No, Rukmini. Yes, Naveen, correct. Okay, I'm ending the poll. And the results are like this. Yes, 19% of the people have chosen option A, 31% of the people have chosen option B, 6% of the people have chosen option C, and 63% of the people have chosen option D. Okay, yes, this is out crossing just now I have explained. Okay, yes, if you got any doubts, just ask me in the chat box. I'm launching a teacher in place, just answer in the teacher in place. Okay, if you have doubts, ask me. See, Srisha, you have asked me a question that the difference between the primates and non-primates, right? So primates do have their hands and feet, and yes, they also have the shoulders and hips, and they have the well-developed brain. Okay, and digits, nails, claws. But non-primates do not have all these things, especially though they have four brain. Yes, any doubts? So can I end the poll? Huh. Yes, Naveen. Ma'am, yesterday my question is there in. Yes, Naveen. There will be a ova banks, especially they're going to collect the ova from the female humans. And there are many ova donors also. Self incompatibility, Bhagyashri. Self incompatibility means yes, the plant is going to identify the pollen grain, or the pistil is going to identify the pollen grain, whether it is of the same type or the different type, or whether it is belongs to the same plant or different plant. If it belongs to the same plant, it is not going to allow that pollen grain to germinate. That is what called self incompatibility. No, in plants I don't think so. Naveen, in plants there are gene banks, but ova banks I don't think so. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Bye.